Greetings, my dear friends and foes. Foes are not neglected, especially the terrorists. I'm currently in Paris, in one of its most beautiful areas, that is to say, one still unoccupied by blacks and Islamic terrorists, free of their presence, where the memory of the real Europe still lingers in the air. Of course, while basking in such beauty, I would love to avoid addressing subjects as tragic and vexatious as these, but I simply must. For today, a great tragedy continues to unfold before our very eyes. First and foremost, it is a tragedy for the people of Israel, but in truth, it is a tragedy that concerns us all. Russians, the French, the Germans, as well as the Belgians and the English. Islamic terrorism is, of course, the paramount tragedy of recent years, decades, and, in truth, centuries. And I've been warning about it through all these years, since my youth, even my school days. It is an absolute catastrophe how many Islamic terrorists Paris has already had to endure. The Islamists have struck Nice, St. Petersburg, New York, London, Stockholm, Berlin, Stuttgart, and Vienna. They have desecrated every city on earth, even uncivilized regions like Third World Africa, which has also suffered enormously at the hands of Islamic terrorists. Alas, these events aren't widely covered.
Там тоже огромное количество исламистских терактов, просто об этом, к сожалению, мало говорят.
Islamists are attacking and killing people every single day. In Moscow, in Paris, everywhere. That alone is ironclad proof that all their twaddle about Palestine or sovereignty is utter rubbish. There is no such state as Palestine. It is a criminal syndicate functioning precisely like any other criminal syndicate. Its primary purpose is killing people, particularly the Israeli people. That's it. That is the sole objective. They care nothing for science or arts or how to be civilized. There is nothing of the sort in their declaration of principles. The one and only goal is murder. What kind of entity is that? They want to have a country of their own, but they'll never be a country. It's a gangland, just like so-called Iran, which was seized by religious terrorists back in '79. Back then, international forces should have taken action to free Iran and its people from the savages, but they did not. And now we face the consequences. The tragedy of the Israeli and Iranian people is this: that in 1979, the world's leading powers yielded an entire country to Islamic terrorists. Today, Iran is a terrorist state, one that has officially encouraged the massacre of Israeli civilians, the taking of hostages, the slaughter of innocents, including children, and the mutilation of human corpses. That alone proves they are not merely animals. No animal commits such acts, but savage brutes, indoctrinated by an ancient religious terroristic brainwash, which must be proscribed globally. This is the beginning, the prime cause of why it happened. Primates come and go, they're born and they die, but the ideology of terror remains. I repeat, stop lying about territories or about free and so-called Palestine. That's not the reason why they are killing people. Here in Paris, Islamic terrorists were and still are on a killing spree. A French teacher was decapitated by a savage scumbag, an ungrateful bastard who was allowed by civilized people to enter a civilized country. Tell me, my pro-Palestine comrades, is your native soil here in France, or is it in Moscow? You scream the same slogans in Moscow and Petersburg before assaulting Russians, or people of other nationalities as you did in Stockholm. Once again, is that your native soil? I know, that's exactly what you believe. The The entire world belongs to you, because world conquest is your goal. And I say this to you, my audience, as a historian and scientist. You must understand, this is an absolute catastrophe. In Russia, just like in France, we are headed for the same disaster now unfolding in Israel, because we too have welcomed in those who hate us. It is written in their formulary to wage war against decent people. Until you grasp this truth, there will be no silver lining. Now, as a scientist, I am absolutely certain that Israel must carry out a precise, pinpoint operation, one aimed at obliterating the terrorist enclaves, whose members openly proclaim their intent to breed children for the sole purpose of raising them as murderers. Just think, the world tempts us with the marvels of nature, art, the liberty of thoughts and sensations such as love and aesthetics. We have all of world history, its formidable figures and their fates. By Jove, the goods are in full riot. Food, sex, celestial horizons, paintings, music, everything that could make one's life terrific. But the terrorists, those obscurantist bastards, could care less. They exist for one purpose only, to kill for the sake of some mythical baloney. And you, decent people I mean, will never understand them. You cannot parley with terrorists. They are indoctrinated by religious ideology, and with such minds, negotiations are futile. These creatures are sick. They breed deliberately to produce carbon copy killing machines, ferocious and frenetic. It's a fact. What has been witnessed for centuries, we now see again in Israel. And I repeat, every worthwhile soul on earth, every country worthy of being called civilized stands with Israel, for the Israeli nation is a victim. It is a beacon of civilization over there, bringing with it, above all else, science, human rights, a modern system of law, and so on. Again, I say, don't let them swindle you. This has nothing to do with the so-called Palestine which they crave to liberate. Because just yesterday in Egypt, one bastard, a criminal, a beastly scumbag of a policeman, an Islamic terrorist, killed 2 Israelis. And he was an Egyptian policeman. You know what that means? This animal is sick, infected by ancient religious bourgeois. He no longer sees himself as a policeman, a guardian of law, nor as an Egyptian citizen, nor even as a human being. His identity is that of a terrorist, driven by age-old delirious writings to murder people. You must understand, this is the central tragedy of our time, and for many, many years I've been warning you about it. Of course, this isn't our only concern. Add to it the Chinese menace and the lethal virus that leaked from the Wuhan laboratory, leaving millions dead. Why did it leak? Because China is a totalitarian state. Keep this in mind. Wherever you have autocratic societies, catastrophes will follow without exception, whether by design or by accident, because the press is subjugated, science is underdeveloped, and the people are uncivilized. While here in Paris, I'd much rather sit and smile, chatting with you about something cheerful and pleasant, but duty calls. What I must open your eyes to is this. You cannot simply lie low and stay safe, for there is no safety anymore. Here in Paris, certain districts are so dangerous that the police don't even dare to enter them, such as the northern suburb, Saint-Denis. Right now, I'm situated near the Place Vendôme, literally the heart of the capital, the Tuileries Gardens, the Louvre and the square itself, with its famous column of the Grand Armée, crowned by the statue of Napoleon the Great. I glance through the window, and what do I see? A cavalcade of police vehicles, about a dozen of them rushing, I gather, toward the northern outskirts. No surprise there, the north is where the savages dwell, and I believe they're rather joyous, knowing that somewhere decent people have just been slaughtered. So, here I am, sitting in a cafe, searching online to find what new excitements or disasters are currently gripping Paris. I called a couple of my Parisian acquaintances and asked, "Listen, maybe I'm just ignorant about how to use the internet, so please, can you check what's going on in Paris right now? Maybe these Islamic terrorists have started yet another agitation, or, since you no longer call them terrorists, are they holding demonstrations now, or just meeting, or perhaps festivities?" Both answered in the negative. 10 minutes of searching, everything appears fine in Paris, and yet a dozen police cars have been deployed. The press remains silent because they are officially forbidden from discussing such matters as, for example, how the Islamists blew up the Notre Dame Cathedral. A friend of mine works in the Ministry of the Interior, and he confirmed that such information is strictly classified. So I went on to investigate, and I saw the reinforcements had just arrived. I must say, these reinforced policemen are about as useless as their assault rifles, because you can't assign a policeman to every building and every citizen in case some savage bastard decides to start a massacre. It's ridiculous. Just don't let those savages in. So I approached one of those officers and asked in a low voice, "I noticed a group of vehicles heading north. What for?" He answered, turning his head aside, "Nothing to worry about." I continued, "Just yesterday this place was free of police. What's happened today?" Again, everything's fine. Now, you know that as a historian, my main subject of study is France and the French. I know more than their spoken language, I know their body language as well. I caught his eyes and asked again suavely, "Look, you can trust me. Tell me, maybe something somewhere did happen." And the scene I witnessed was so shameful and eerie. This policeman, armed with a rifle, standing right in front of me, turned his gaze tentatively and muttered from the corner of his mouth, "Yes, it's them. Quite a rough house in the north, so we sent reinforcements there." You see, these leftists restricted the people from telling the truth, so there is no news whatsoever about how the terrorists inside Paris are backing their brethren elsewhere. Even the police are afraid to tell people on the streets what's happening. 12 police cars roaring through the capital, shattering peaceful life, cutting through the nerves of the taxpayers before the terrorists had even done anything, but they certainly will. Every civilized nation on earth is preparing for potential terrorist attacks. What charming news from Marseille! The Faculty of Economics at Marseille University has been closed because they are unable to maintain security measures, because within its walls the savage invaders, of course they are calling them something else, are smuggling drugs, slitting throats, raping women and so on, because Europe has been literally conquered by them. That's why I tell you, we, the Slavic people, must seize all our squabbles. We must unite. We must consolidate all the power we possessed in Eastern Europe, because the West is decrepit. Yes, Europe is beautiful, it's exquisite, and it remains a delight for any art researcher, romantic or poet. But I say, Eastern Europe must stay united. We must channel our strength, our energy and our muscle into driving the invaders out from the West. Europe has bestowed upon us civilization, education, culture, and Mireille Mathieu to boot. And now we, the Easterners, are duty-bound to give our thanks and lend them our help in return. Again, I must repeat, your greatest blunder is this. You're betting this century is fireproof. But this is not a matter of a century, perhaps not even a year. You think it concerns only distant countries like Israel or France or England, but you're wrong. It threatens all of us. Russia is no exception. The Islamic terrorists have already attacked civilians in St. Petersburg and Moscow, and they will do it again. This August, I made a post about the savages marched through the city center, shouting the same war cries as those degenerative brutes who are now slaughtering people in Israel. And what did the police do? Nothing. But suppose a free-thinking man, say a professor, had stepped outside to give a lecture on political freedoms. He would have been locked in the slammer on the spot. Yet these Islamists who entered Russia illegally and have no right whatsoever to remain in Moscow, why are they allowed to do as they please? It's a fact and it's disgraceful. disgraceful. It disgusts me. Our country must be cleansed of all potential Islamists. Both France and Russia and many other lands are in the same boat. Hammer the truth into the minds of those around you, smart or stupid, relatives or strangers, your classmates or your colleagues, all of them. Spread the word. If you're using leftist media, cheese and cheat them if you like. Switch letters, use symbols or dots. I know there are ways to trick their filters. You see, we must operate like saboteurs behind enemy lines, because the left has taken the citadel, and now it's up to us to break it from within. Leftists have seized the press, the universities, the social media platforms. This is leftist fascism in its purest form, and they are the architects of today's misfortunes. Now, I'd like to address the left-wing fascists and Nazis of the European Commission and other soft-minded organizations. Your attitude toward Russians is indistinguishable from that of the Nazis of yore. You apply to us this notion of collective responsibility, but why don't you apply the same standard to actual terrorists? Iran is a terrorist state. So-called Palestinian separatists are terrorists as well, and there are millions, dozens of millions of their supporters and sympathizers who share the same religious and ideological state of mind. Where is your collective responsibility now? They are slaughtering people in Paris, in London, in Nice, in Berlin, in New York, always the same type of culprits. So why the favors for them and the collective responsibility for Russians? This Nazi-like doctrine espoused by the European Commission is precisely why certain trigger-happy dictators still remain in power. You know, it drives even decent people to think, well, if these leftists are truly Russian-hating bastards as they say, maybe I should feel more sympathetic toward our local politicians. Maybe they do have a point. This, my lefty comrades, is the sore wages of your faults. And so, these were my main theses, repeated 3,000 times until my tongue became one rough edge. You, my darlings, even the dearest of darlings, are sick. You are ephemeral creatures, absorbing only the news of what happened today. Not even yesterday, not a week ago, but only this very day. I said everything 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. In Kommersant Vlast, I published not only my famous Third Reich article from 2003, but also the 2004 piece about how the barbarians destroyed Roman civilization after being let inside. That was my allusion to the Islamic terrorists. It was published in 2004. Now it's October 2023. Almost 20 years have passed. Gosh, how persistent the beauty of my youth. But your brains were weak 20 years ago and still are. I told you everything. I warned you. How can you be so thick? Go and listen to my videos on the subject once again. I've never failed in my predictions. Spare your ears from all these info-gypsy punks, for they're swindling liars. They botched their analysis of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, got duped about the European leftist and the Islamists. They were wrong about everything because they're not analysts, they're jettison monks. But you swallowed their cram and you became addicted to their everyday what happened bullshit. For me, there's nothing new in the world, because I foresaw it all long ago. That being said, all diplomatic relations with those countries that supported the Palestinian terrorists, Iran, for example, must be severed. They are terrorists as well. This is not a matter of opinion. You cannot support terrorists. It is a crime. One primitive cult is threatening us all. We must recognize it immediately and expunge it. To Israel, I wish strength and unity. I hope their countermeasures are devastating. Forget negotiations. They are a waste of time and human lives. The methods by means of which you can achieve the best possible results are total annihilation of terroristic enclaves. It is a tumor that must be cut out. Cease your hopes or expectations that the United Nations will help you. You can rely only on yourselves. Beat the stuffing out of the terrorists, because brutality is the language they understand best. Brutality and modern weaponry, because it's foolish to squander human lives on terrorists. The rate of exchange is far from being square, you know.
Потому что нельзя на дикарей тратить людей. Это безумие, это нечестный обмен. Такой бизнес не делают. Ну а так.
Well, from Paris, I salute you. We mustn't lower our spirits. Our foes are hangdogs. They exist solely to kill. So let them see how we, the decent folk, are having a good time. How merry, joyful, creative and fruitful we are. These gods are utterly barren, and that inferiority complex is the root cause of their violence. Those who bolster terrorists do so because their minds are those of defective criminals. Life brings no satisfaction to these hod-man-dot, talentless, beggarly losers. That's why the misbegotten so often fancy mobsters, terrorists, looters and thieves or Bolshevik rebels. If a primate sides with terrorists, prayerful schizoids, thugs or the far left, then one thing must be done to his greasy mug. A pitch-black brand, scalded in capital letters, failure.
Или левых, крайне левых и так далее. Просто на морду ставьте печать. Ущербное чмо. Ставьте печать.
As for the sound and steady among you, my friends, followers and subscribers, to you go my deepest sympathies, my admiration and my best wishes. Stay sharp, hold fast to one another and preserve what truly matters, the sky above us and what has been built beyond. Ta-ta. Now I'm thinking, yeah, that's a great video I made, but it's in Russian. Alright, we'll switch it to English, French, Italian. I know a few lingues myself, some of the lads can help with German, but honestly, what's the point? It's a circle jerk. It really ought to be translated into Arabic, just for the hell of it. Jot the text down in Cyrillic. I'll drop the European manners and gestures of mine and switch to something that actually fits. Same motive, but like... That's how it should be. Same message, same philosophy, but... It sounds disgusting, but they will get it. You know what I think? These pseudo-liberals have one big disadvantage. What a pack of dolts. They've got their little private club where they explain things to each other. It's like a game of Dutch rubber, I swear. You've got to educate people outside that bubble. Go out and talk to them. Look, I express myself in the style of a proper intellectual. But who's my audience? Decent folk, mostly. Yeah, a couple of schizoid will make a fuss, but whatever. They're not the audience I crave. So that's why Arabic. Zhirinovsky knew this stuff pretty well, but heaven help me, I sure didn't. We'll wait and see. If someone can throw together a script, alright then, I'll do it. Ponasenkov speaks Arabic. Wicked pisser. Not genius, you genius, I say. I gave a couple of interviews to Al Jazeera and, honestly, even their press is more liberal than ours. Anyway, my dear comrades, if it so happens that some of you speak Arabic well enough and can translate it, send me the script. I'll throw in some gestures and facial expressions to make it work. I'll flip my suit inside out, wrap myself in a canopy and rugs, in memoriam to Lawrence of Arabia. I'll be a good Lawrence. He, Peter O'Toole, and I, we've got a lot in common. If you can't beat them, lead them. You think I'm joking now, but here's the problem. Here's the problem. People are morons. I have no options, I think. What? Scene's over. Ciao.